Everyone, it's Allison Mondell. Welcome to Song Class. I'm here. I have so much to share with you. I'm so excited. Basically, I'm just checking in. If you're there, say hi in the comments. I'm hoping that my chat here will show your names. This is the big troubleshooting thing that I'm working right now. But if you're here, I'm so grateful for your presence and your energy, and I am so excited to dive into this class with you and really to take some time out to share music and to share ideas is such a joy. And to be able to come together and look in depth at some of this music, that we may not necessarily take the time to really go beyond the notes. And this is what I'm really excited about to do with you today. So if you haven't already, I'm going to make sure that that link is handy, but you want to get yourself a score. And here we're going to look at Hildegard's Kyrie today, right? So I'm just making sure we're all together. Oh, yay! Okay, let's see. Hi, Nina. Hi, Marilyn. Glad you're here. Anne and Steve. Hi there. It's so great to have you all. So, my friends, I put in the chat the link. I hope that I can connect with all my friends on Facebook too. So let's dive in. So, what I want to do today is walk us through just some introductory material here. Hi, Estragon. Walking us into the Kyrie. I'm just giving you a little bit of background about this rather unusual insertion into Hildegard's book of like her collection of music, the Symphonia. The Kyrie is not part technically of the group of songs of the Symphonia, or so it seems. The Symphonia Harmonia Celestium Revelationum, this collection of songs that Hildegard wrote that are very specifically themed and really have this sort of unity to the collection. And then what we have are two movements, two songs, I suppose you could call them, two works that are included as part of the Mass. One of them being the Kyrie, the other is an Alleluia setting, the Alleluia o Virga Mediatrix, which is very, very splendid Alleluia setting. And what I want to do is look specifically at this Kyrie. I want to show you some of this content in the original manuscript, and then, of course, to lead us into the singing piece. So first of all, the Kyrie, I'm going to jump over here and look at some images here, okay? So I want to share with you this manuscript folio. I'm going to show you just this first part. You see this first iteration of the Kyrie, eleison. So what we have here, I'm going to give you the briefest overview, is we have this music preserved in the Riesencodex, the great tome that was compiled following Hildegard's death. This was not overseen by her necessarily. It postdated her lifespan, but what you see is this miraculous clarity and a style of old notation that resembles Hofnagelschrift. It's sort of it's basically early German style notation, and you see this red line which is indicating F, and this yellow line with a C clef that tells us where C is. And so, my friends, hopefully what you can see is the beautiful clarity of these neumes. Now, what is important to know is that all of the various shapes of these neumes carry some information, not just tonal information, i.e., what is the pitch? Thank goodness we have the staff to give us this information. And at the same time, we have these neumes, right? And they're so beautiful, they're so unique, and they're so specific. And that is something to really keep in mind when we're talking about the information, the quantitative information of the neumes, the science, if you will. The art lies in the interpretation, right? So I'm going to come back to you. So when it comes to interpreting this music, it really comes down to what's in between the notes or what's behind the notes. The notes are simply symbols giving us this information. But as we know, Hildegard infused so much sort of spirit into the music that she wrote. It was indeed channeled from source. It was coming through her in a very, very deep and spiritual way through her visions. And we know that music was so important to the life to Hildegard, but in the life of her monastery and in the way in which she expressed herself. And what a beautiful gift that we have this opportunity to do the same thing. So here, I want to just sort of transfer that original notation into the modern notation that we're using here in this edition. I'm very cognizant of the fact that this kind of thing, whenever we upgrade notation into something that is more modern, we lose something. But that doesn't mean we can't try. So we are going to use this modern notation. And as you look at this score, you'll see some of I'm going to go back to this, this image here, where you see the note heads that I've used in the contemporary work do correspond, and I've used several just sort of modern conventions to convey some of this information. We have larger note heads that would imply something that is more stable, more grounded, has more weight, stress, duration, emphasis. But again, it's all relative. This is an art, not a science. So then we have something with smaller note heads. And as you see in the manuscript, you'll see we have, say, in the first two notes, you have these very, I love these neumes. They're called apostrophes, like apostrophes, right? Apostrophes have a good deal of weight. And you see in the very first two notes of the modern manuscript, I have, again, a modern convention, 2 lines over those notes. Those would be typically considered tenudos, or tenudo, the Latin root ten is to hold, tenore. And so we're not necessarily going to hold, but we are going to place some emphasis there on the apostrophe neumes, and then followed by, I'm looking at the Kyrie on the screen. We have the third neume as a virga, followed by 2 puncti, or punctum is the singular. And those are indicated in the modern score with smaller note heads. Okay. So just to sort of walk you through, especially if you are someone who's interested in looking at this music, and have already, been downloading some of these things from the AS site or from wherever you are looking at medieval music in modern notation, we're looking at ways to interpret. I consider it like a translation of this 12th century language, musical language. So I just wanted to sort of give you a little view of what we're doing here in terms of reading the music. And I do have my larger facsimile, and I love sharing this because it just lights the imagination. So here I have a beautiful facsimile. It's just a life-size facsimile of the Symphonia from the Reason Codex. Now the Reason Codex is roughly this size, but it's very, very thick. And this is just the musical portion. And here we have, and if you look at your score again at the top of the first staff, it says R F472V. So that's a rubric that indicates what the source is, where if you went to the source, you'd be able to find the Kyrie. And that means Reason Codex, folio 472, V stands for verso, which is the reverse side, the back. So 472 recto would be the front. I know I'm looking at like a mirror image, so we'll see if this is clear. So this is 472 folio, 472 recto, folio 472 verso. And you see here in the Reason Codex, we have two columns. So here, my friends, is the Kyrie. And we already know that it's unique. It's the only true mass movement that Hildegard includes in her body of work. So we assume that she's the original composer. And it's sort of sweetly kind of tucked in. And the interesting thing about the Reason Codex, I'm going to try to keep this brief because I could talk about this all day. But it is like a wormhole when you start getting into sources and you get excited about really exploring all the different questions that come up when you do this kind of work. Why is this here? It's the question. Why is this here? And when we look back in time 900 years, you do all the reading you can and you still sometimes are left scratching your head. It's a mystery. And so, in my own research and, not being a liturgist at all, and just coming at this from the perspective of a performer and an editor, how do we understand what in the world this is doing here? Well, I want to put this into perspective. I'm just going to lay this at your feet. It is hypothesis, nothing more. This Reason Codex is composed in a very unique way. It was, as I mentioned, Hildegard did not oversee this. Barbara Newman believes that a lot of all of the songs, Hildegard's songs, the Symphonia, may have been on loose sheaths, manuscript sheaths, and that when this was compiled after Hildegard passed, that the nuns put the sheaves together in a compilation, and that they used the order of the Symphonia that Hildegard had laid out in the other main source of her music, the Dendermonde Codex. But then they put the short songs at the front and the long songs at the end. And they're sort of out of order in some ways, purposefully out of order. And then we have this Kyrie. So why do we have the Kyrie here? Well, going on the fact that we cannot assume that Hildegard in any way placed it here. Most likely she didn't. But it does follow 4 songs dedicated to the church. So following that are 2 very grand works dedicated to the Holy Spirit. And I see this Kyrie, and when we hear it, it does have a bit of a familiar ring. And I'll tell you why in a moment. And I wonder, and this is just my supposition, thinking about, composing a Kyrie for a special occasion, possibly, and this is where my supposition or my hypothesis is, where it would be potentially included in the dedication of the Rupertsberg or something in which it would have had a special place in that ceremony. Yes, it follows 4 songs dedicated or sort of composed for the dedication of a church. They're stunning songs. And in fact, the last one, O Coruscans, this insane song, O Coruscans Lux Stellarum, has many, many beautiful references to the celestial realm. And so what I want to do is just kind of bring us into another sort of piece where we can explore here this Kyrie, which is this music, the tune, the beautiful melodies that she employs. and the unique key or mode that she uses too, which is frankly very, very uncommon. And I've only heard it now. I have not sung or performed all of Hildegard's works, nor have I transcribed them all. There's only one other that comes to mind where she actually does repeat some of this material in the Kyrie, and that is O Lucidissima Apostolorum Turba, the remarkable responsory that's included in the Scivias that's dedicated to the apostles. And there is some direct material in this Kyrie that is also contained in that song. That's a really heady piece. It's incredible. Again, sort of like looking at these great, beautiful heights and sort of soaring us into those heights through these mellifluous lines. So what I hear here in this mode in F, and there are a few strangenesses, there are a few curiosities here in the manuscript. I'm going to come back here where we see if we were coming from a complete, just without any foreknowledge of this piece or Hildegard or medieval music, what we would see is, and I think we can all agree that just is really weird, right? That Lydian mode with that beautiful raised fourth. And let me know if you can hear my piano okay. I will turn it up too. So all of a sudden we have a pretty obvious sense that maybe there's a flat missing. Yes, there is a. And there, with that flat, all is made right in the world. And we sort of move ourselves into this major key. And it is transformative. And, this sweetness of F, and bringing us into this settled place, a place that's home. Home. I love that. This is the way my brain goes. Home, the Rupertsberg, the home, the place that is. Imagine Hildegard and the nuns finally coming into their own chapel, having walked through fire to get to this place, and then looking around and saying, "Oh my God, look what we created by the grace of God." Amazing. I digress. So let's come back to the Kyrie. There is one other thing I'd like to put in your caps in terms of background information before I launch us into singing and music. Okay, I turned over the piano, my friends. There we go. So what we have is the origin of the music. We know, of course, that Hildegard was such a luminary, such a maverick. But that said, she was influenced by all kinds of chant that she would have been. She, the sisters, and the monks at the Dizzy Bodenberg would have all been ingesting day in and day out ancient chants. And I thought, well, let's look at the Kyrie, body of Kyries that are available. And going to the source that really a modern day source, which is there's a few. But specifically, there are a number of mass settings contained in the Kyrial Romanum. And you can find this online. I even have a link. Let me see if I can find that link. I may have lost it, but that's okay. I'm going to show you going through this book. And what I did was I looked at all the Kyries and I'm like, what do we have here? Let's see if there's anything that might sound familiar. And here's what I want to show you, my friends. This Mass, this would be the 8th Mass included in that book of chants. And you see here, it's actually thought to be composed, I'm looking at the top, where it says the 15th to the 16th centuries. I want you to just have a listen, though. This is the Mass dedicated to angels, De Angelis, as you see. So we have a very similar resonance. And we see in the in Hildegard's work, there, yes, it's in F major. Maybe that's all we need. Maybe I'm jumping to conclusions, but it's just so exciting and it's so illuminating to look in different ways and to follow the trail of breadcrumbs as we explore ancient music and begin to see how things are pulled together and to understand, music serves such an important purpose. And yes, it's worth looking into these things and investigating. But at the end of the day, and what I really do hope you walk away from this class with is, how do we bring ourselves to this music? How do we have some sense of where it fits in and how it goes? But not just in our voices, but how we can approach it in a way that is more illuminated, more intentional. And I think that's the most important thing for me, is how do we bring our intention? So this is a song class. We're here. It's a beautiful Friday afternoon. We're not in a mass. And most likely, most of us wouldn't perform this in a mass. It's not even meant to be performed, right? It's a mass movement. However, we know that performance culture is so different now. And what we do have is an opportunity to create an intention about how we do bring something like this Kyrie movement, into our lives and onto our stage and into our practice. So what I want to do is just sort of help us marry this intention with interpretation. It's like two of my favorite words right there. So knowing that we are obviously learning some music here, but I also want to consider the text for a moment, this acclamation of the Kyrie, Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy, Lord have mercy. And yes, these acclamations would have been spoken 3 times each. Kyrie, the opening Kyrie 3 times, the secondary Christe 3 times. And then in this version, Hildegard's Kyrie, very common convention, if you think of this form as A, B, C, D. So we'd have A, A, A. I know I'm moving quickly. B, B, B. B is the Christe. Kyrie, C, C. Kyrie, Kyrie. D, final Kyrie. So there's a unique final Kyrie. It's very beautiful. We have these lovely melismatic lines to guide us into this space of the prayer, holding the prayer. And that for me is how intentionality works when it comes to connecting with a piece. Not just the interpretation, like how do the notes go, how loud or soft or stretched or fast or slow, but how we come into the heart of the piece, how we choose to transmit this piece and offer it to our audience. I hope that makes sense. It's really exciting. So what we have is this very simple setting. Lord have mercy. So for me, I'm not going to get into theology at all here, but that's not my bailiwick. But I do want to consider, for me, I'm going to give you an example of how this means something to me and invite you to sort of come into that space. Again, we're not in church. We're not settling into any kind of liturgy, but we're learning how to connect with this Kyrie. So for me, Lord, have mercy. For me, it is, Lord, illuminate me. And bringing that into this space between the notes. So everyone, I'm going to keep this in F. I'm going to invite you, if it's too high, know that, please, please, please know, you can transpose any of these things down, up or down. You have complete license to do so. I love F. It's like, F. So good to be home. So my friends, have a listen. Have a listen. Listen one more time. Kyrie. Let's try that all together, okay? Kyrie. Beautiful. And then we come into this fifth. It's like finally, like sort of building the house. Tum, 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 tum. So we settle into that third, and then she brings us finally into that final. So what I'd like to try is this, just to sort of, so we can sense the melodic structure here, even in this opening line. Kyrie. Can we try that? Kyrie. Yes. And it's almost as if there's like this forerunning couple of notes to finally, when we complete this sort of sequence with the E vowel. Interesting note in this Kyrie, we normally think of Kyrie eleison as two words. In this manuscript, it's like basically a big elision. It's written in all three iterations. Christe eleison, Kyrie eleison. So here's what we're going to do. Let's continue. I'm going to sing the first half of the first Kyrie, okay? And then we'll repeat all together, okay? Feel free to sing with me if you'd like, but if you just need to get it in your ear, I understand. Kyrie. Just that much. And that's a great place to take a breath. Ready? Kyrie. Beautiful. I'm going to finish the line. And wherever you see, in this case, the Y in parentheses, this is a liquescent neum. It's indicating that we sort of move into that consonant on the whole note, rather than thinking about our beautiful bel canto legato. No, this is not that. So we are in the middle of this phrase where we have those two notes, those two C's with those tenudos. Those are apostrophs. I'm just going to have some fun and show you this. So let's go from the middle of the line. Let's try the whole first line together. Here we go. Beautiful. So now we come to the Christe. It's got some similar sounds. It's going to get a little bit higher. It's a reminder to myself to support a little bit more. Here we have that gorgeous Angelis motif. Here we go. Have a listen or come along with me. It's up to you, okay? Christ. I would breathe there. It's different than the first, right? It has this totally unique flavor. Whew, so inventive. Let's go from the Christe one more time all together. Ready? Christe. Beautiful. Now we have the next Kyrie. Before we sing, I want to show you here. So here's, if you see the top, there's the Christe liaison. Now here is the next Kyrie. It sort of comes off the sort of end of this line up here. I don't know if you can see my cursor at all. Probably not. And then we have this beautiful Kyrie liaison. Kyrie liaison. I wish I could show you my face while I show you my my images, but 'tis not to be. I'll do that for next time. So here we have line 3. The next iteration of Kyrie. You see those smaller notes, yeah? I'll show you real quick. Look at the top right. You have a little quilisma here that's really quite fast at the top right of the screen. See that red K. Kyrie. Let's try that. Ready, everybody? I'll sing it first. Kyrie. Let's stop there and get everybody together on the same page. Let's go from line 3. Pretty straightforward. Here's line 4. I'm just noticing the similarity of the bottom, the end of line 4, where we go into that F, F, E on the line. It's very, 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 very similar to the first line, but we have it's very simple. But here we have it's a perfect example of just this embellishment, the ornamentation, the frills, the decoration. That is in no way empty, but the embellishment that is detailed for the sake of, in my opinion, more loving, more loving. Yeah. So let's try line 4 together. Ready? We have lies on. let's come into the final Kyrie. The one we just completed in lines 3 and 4 would have been already sung twice. And then we come into this final statement. That is, in fact, the broadest. It is the longest, the most extended. So let's do this. I'll sing the first section of line 5, and then we'll come back together. Follow along, sing along, up to you. Kyrie, let's do that, my friends. Ready? Yes, I hear echoes of the line that came right before it. Yes, similar. And then let's keep going. I would breathe there because we have this beautiful new musical statement. Similar material there as you're noticing. I'm sure you're noticing. If not, it's okay. Maybe you noticed, oh, that's curious. Here's line 6. We have this very, very, very characteristic fifth, which I love. And it's hearkening back to the very, very first line where we have this. Yes. Here's line 6, my friends. I could talk about this all day. We're going to keep going. Ready? We do have these smaller notes at the end. Let's see what were the names that she was using. A quilisma followed by 3 punctum. That tells us let's move ahead. Let's come off of this with some alacrity. Yeah. So beautiful. Do you see? I'm looking at the Kyrie here. This third Kyrie, the very final Kyrie. We get to the end of the line. You see that beautiful long podatus indicating the fifth. It's gorgeous. All those notes feed together. Oh, someone said, tips about when to breathe. That's an excellent question. Let's talk about that. I did not write breath marks in, which would have been judicious to do. For me, especially when it comes to this highly melismatic writing, and of course, we already talked about the phrase being one great elision. There's not even a break in the text. We have musical breaks, and indeed, if you were singing this by yourself, you'd have to take some breaths somewhere. If you were singing with a choir, we do this with Aya all the time. I always joke that I don't believe in the breath police. So even with a group, you certainly have my permission to take breaths where you need them. So notice I tend to take breaths. I did not enjoy the breath I took at the end of line 6, and I would find another place to breathe earlier so that I didn't breathe in the middle, say, of a noom, right in the word so, on. So let's just talk about that for line 6. You could breathe somewhere in there. So really, how do we insert a breath so that it's musical and so that, and this is key, it's not the absence of sound that is going to interrupt the music. It's the absence of energy. So a breath can be part of the line. In fact, breath is so important. And breath, and I'm sorry you might hear some background noise here, but the breath is a vital aspect of singing. We don't have to apologize for it. We don't have to worry that we don't have enough or it's going to interrupt or get in the way. On the contrary, I invite you to find ways to make the breath, again, this is my favorite word, intentional, right? So let's look at the first line. There's a perfect place for a breath where you're going to set up the next line. And in some ways, your breath has the capacity, it's like laying the baton down and handing the baton to the next runner in the race, but you're actually inviting your audience back in for that cosmic reset of the line. We're setting it down, and now we're going to bring the energy back up. So it can really, really, really be a crucial aspect of the performance and also a beautiful tool, rhetorical tool, energetic tool, musical tool. That's really fun. So my friends, I do not want to go beyond 45 minutes of your time. What is the fifth in line sixth characteristic? Hi, Marika. Okay, let's look at that. Line 6. Why is the fifth? That leap is something we hear all the time, obviously in medieval music, but it is something that Hildegard employs very, very constantly. There's a lawn service outside my window that I did not expect today. I hope that answers your question, Marika. That's something we hear a lot, and it's something really, in my opinion, to be savored and to use again in this musical rhetoric that can be transferred into that exchange between you and your audience, or you and your own breath, you and your own experience. You're welcome, Marika. You're welcome. My friends, I would love to hear your questions or your thoughts about whether it's this piece. If I have any watchers or listeners that are liturgists, I'd love to know about that too, or know more about Gregorian chant and Kyrie usage. I'd be fascinated to hear from you. But I'm really excited to be able to share this with you. The other thing I wanted to mention is, as we talked about bringing intention into this song, or whether or not it's a performance for the sake of other people hearing it at, say, a concert, or just something that you are working on, something that you are bringing forth, to allow yourself to enter into that space where the intention is really seeded into the piece through, that sacred mind, through coming through you, co-creating with Hildegard and making some magic in the moment. It's really exciting. It's really all in potentia for you. And that's why I love to teach this music. We can be feathers on the breath of God. Yes, indeed, we can. You're welcome, Marilyn. I'm glad you're here. She says it's a lovely melody to start off the day. I could remember the opening and ending phrases. You're welcome. I also want to share, I'll just look at our beautiful manuscript again. My friends, if this is something that's interesting to you, this is also something that I teach in great detail in my course. It's called Singing Hildegard, and you can find out about that at the AO website. Show that to you. medievalmusic.org, where you can get more songs to download for free and explore the course on Hildegard's notation and how you can come into your own when it comes to reading the neumes and understanding both the art and the science of reading this notation, which is something I just love to do. I wish I could dedicate all my days to it, but there's lots of things to do in life, many things to create. I would also love to know, either in the chat or it is a work of art, yes, if there is any specific song or concept that you would like to explore. I would be so happy to hear from you. It is my great pleasure to respond to what you are interested in. And, I could throw ideas at you all day. I am usually looking at works and songs that are more accessible musically and vocally. That's not always easy when it comes to Hildegard's Symphonia. They are indeed can be very challenging, some of them, but that will not stop us from exploring something else besides singing them in depth. But what we have here is an opportunity to take something that's fairly simple and step into this container of the piece and as I said, co-create. Okay. If you have any more comments, put them in the comments. Drop them in. If you're watching the replay, let me know. And it is such a joy to share this time with you. I get so excited to do this, to share this music and these ideas. And I want to send you away with a blessing for your own music making and your own prayer, whatever it is that you do with this music. You're welcome. You're welcome, my friends, on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you so much. I hope you have a beautiful day. Yes. You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks, Marika. Thank you, Nina. I'm so glad to have you all here. Blessings, my friends. Take care. Bye.